Great. Awesome. Thanks for the opportunity, Linnell. Happy to share my story and a few tidbits here around the mining industry and the benefits. I am a chemical engineer by education. I grew up in the oil and gas sector as a environment, health, and safety leader, and that's where I spent the majority of my career in the oil sands and in a couple of corporate roles, EHS director roles in Calgary. I moved to hard rock mining. So I moved to the diamond mining industry in early 2021 during the pandemic. And I joined the Ekati Diamond Mine as the head of health, safety, security, environment, and communities at that time. I've changed roles a little bit in terms of taking on training just recently and dropped the security piece of my role. So still a senior leader in the mining industry, working at the Ekati Diamond Mine now over 3.5 years. It's been a whirlwind in terms of working through a world pandemic and keeping the operation going and producing and keeping everyone safe.
What a time to start.
What a time to start. And we were in startup mode in January of 2021, which was the peak and height of the pandemic. And folks were working from home, and we were starting up. So we still had folks traveling to site, driving trucks, folks underground at the Misery Underground mine. Again, we had our protocols in place in terms of keeping everybody safe, in terms of not transmitting COVID. We had testing in place. We had PCR testing in place at site. We had 2 PCR machines. Everyone would get tested as soon as they arrived at site. And everyone was wearing masks. Everyone was following the 2-meter rule, distance, washing hands, etc. So we did have folks get quarantined as per the requirements of the health director from the Northwest Territories. But we managed through in terms of not being shut in during the worldwide COVID pandemic, which is a huge accomplishment for a mine site. The mine was sold to Burgundy Diamond Mines. July 1st went live, July 1st on Canada Day 2023, and it's been great in terms of trying to actually extend the mine life at Ekati and extend the benefits for the north and for the communities in the north. It's a never a dull day in mining at a mine site. There's always no days the same, which makes it very interesting and also from time to time challenging. So you get a variety, which is everyone likes variety in terms of their day-to-day work, and but some days are more challenging than others depending on what issues or opportunities arise during the day. And that's the benefit of working in mining, that you have such a variety. And working at a remote mine site, you get to meet folks from around the world. We're a Canadian mine site, so we have Canadians working at the mine site, but you have folks that are Australian. We have folks from around the world that have become Canadians that work at the mine site. So you have quite the diversity, which is fantastic in terms of bringing different perspectives and, I guess, problem-solving skills to the table. And we have quite a few community members that work at the mine site, and typically then most people are on a 2-and-2 rotation, so 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So they leave their families and they work at the site for 2 weeks, and they're off back to their communities for 2 weeks. The communities really benefit from the mines in the territory from a economics perspective, as well as giving back into the community when they go back on their days off. Some of the community members that work at our mine site, they actually work, they have skills that they work as a plumber, or they work an electrician in their community, or even like an EMT, for example.
They literally take that learning home and put it to use in the communities. When you're talking about the blend of people at the site, I always think that's one of the most amazing things. So I personally have a little bit of a unique history with the North, because I was here for 6 years. Then my partner and I were around the world doing different mining jobs and having kids in other countries and doing all of those things. So we had a lot of experience moving in and out of different cultures. And I'm wondering what it's like to have all of those cultures instead of you going to the cultures come to you at the mine site. I'm wondering if you have any particular stories or anything like that, where it sometimes just strikes you. It's like, wow, we've got a person here from, urban Australia, and we have someone from remote northern Canada.
To me, it's just fascinating to have such a variety of cultures, and being able to talk to those individuals and learning more about their backgrounds. How did they actually end up in a remote mine site, working in a remote mine site? What drove them there? And then really seeing that there's a lot that different cultures have in common, which is quite neat, right? And then typically when you talk to different folks at the mine site from different locations or different areas, it's generally the conversation always ends up about talking about what's your favorite food, which sounds funny, but
Right?
but every culture, when you start to talk about that, it's like, I like this type of rice, or I like, this type of chicken, or whatever it is, or this, like they have sweet tooth, and it's like, oh, I like that too. And it's amazing how food brings cultures together. So anyway, and in a remote mine site, food is provided for you, lodging is provided for you. So when you have your downtime in the evenings, you have that time to actually get to know each other, play soccer in the gym or play volleyball in the gym, and you start to learn even more about them. So it's quite unique, but it's you don't see that in every workplace, that you have cultures from around the world that come together, and in kind of you're almost like a little town. The mine site's almost like a little town, and you get to know everybody because it's such a small town, right? And it's such a small site. That's the benefit, versus it being in a really large company in a city. You don't get that time to actually get to know each other that well, right? When you're at a mine site, remote, that's the benefit.
I think it's so interesting to hear you talk about the site as though it's a small town, and I think it would have all of the benefits of that, that time to get to know each other and get to know each other in a way. And you're talking about the food, and it just absolutely resonated with me, because food is the way in. If we get together, we're having food. And in my family, every time there was an event, if I asked my mom how it was, she would immediately tell me what was served. And so what was served was a big part of the conversation. And there was so much symbolism in everything that was served, and all of those, special things, and the traditional foods of this country or that country, or all the rest of it, and having the chance to play together. I think that's a really interesting thing. especially after a fairly long day of work. It's typically 12 or more hours. For those who are in leadership, it doesn't cut off at 12 hours. I know that. That just carries on. So being a chemical engineer and then getting right into health and safety in the oil and gas industry, and then shifting into a different industry with the hard rock mining, was that a big shift for you, or was it minor?
It wasn't a big shift for me because a lot of the elements and the practical learnings from oil and gas can be applied to hard rock mining. Like the principles and the problem-solving skills from oil and gas can be utilized in hard rock mining, as well as like any sort of best practices from another industry. Is always good to look at another industry and see if there's some best practices that you can apply to a new or another industry. And that's the approach I took in terms of when I started, and I continue in terms of trying to find those best practices from other industries that could be applied possibly at a caddy to improve from an environment, health, and safety perspective, or from an optimization perspective. I think we always that's the way of the world today is just technology, and you have to always be improving, continuous improvement. And so I think it's something I brought with me from oil and gas, and I continue to, that's the mindset I bring every day. How can we do something differently? How can we improve on our health and safety performance or environment performance, or even just optimize one of our processes and suggest that in terms of trying to make things better.
I hear in what you're saying that there's always you have an internal drive to push and learn more and to share that learning and to bring things together to make improvements for the business, but also for people's experience of the business. I have a view that when a company is able to take care of the safety of the people, that's sort of a great foundation for setting what is your corporate culture, and looking to set that and bring those new things in. It always fascinates me, how culture gets set, how all these different things happen. And in the different places where we've lived and the different stories I've heard and read as I go around to conferences, the safety piece of it, I think, is really pivotal. So what draws you to, initially you started in safety. So what drew you into that aspect of the industry? From being a chemical engineer to safety, it's not necessarily a straight line. I'm going to say it's maybe a dotted line.
Yeah, I had a 16-month co-op term in environment at the Suncor Sarnia refinery, oil refinery. And so I was part of the environment, health, and safety team for 16 months. I took a co-op term that was for basically 16 months between my third and fourth year of engineering. And that drew me into environment, health, and safety. And basically I stayed in the field my entire career. I've been fortunate to stay in my career in health, safety, environment my entire career. Also, from a safety perspective, on my mom's side of the family, my uncle was actually involved he was killed in an underground mine in northern New Brunswick, and where ore past ore basically crushed him, and it devastated the family. And even to this day, to talk about it's hard. And he was 41 years old, Alvin Jennings, and so I get my passion around safety from him, and I don't want to see that happen to any other family, and so that's my internal driver.
Well, I'm sorry that you know the pain. I think it's something that, once it touches your family, you're never the same again. And I know another a man I know in safety, that was his motivation as well. They lost a family member, and he works every day of his life to make sure that mining is as safe as it can be. So
Yeah.
it's powerful stuff.
You can never let your guard down, and and we're human beings. We all make mistakes, and that's understanding that, and then providing controls that help support the workforce, and that coaching and mentoring can't be understated, and also not becoming complacent is key. We do routine tasks. You do it at home too. You do routine tasks at home too, and you shut off your brain, and you should never do that even at home, right? So it's just, keeping that mindset, keeping that unease supports that strong, hey, I'm in the moment, think about what I'm doing. And then also just getting that coaching and mentoring from your peers, your workmates, your supervisor, that all, combined. It's not just one element, it's several elements that combine helps in terms of building a strong safety culture.
Yeah, and it's never one conversation or one incident or anything like that. It's an always on sort of thing. And I've seen you at work, and I know that you have the energy to always be, on and driving and moving things forward and making sure that people are all right. Being female in mining, has that given you a unique look at the industry, or is it motivating to you in a particular way?
I haven't really looked at it through that lens. I've always had support. I felt I've always had any of my, from starting as a co-op student through, being an EIT, through being a professional engineer and growing into a leader. I always felt like I had support from teammates, from my supervisors over my career that has allowed me to have really positive experiences. And I don't know, I don't think that's across the board for women in mining and women in industry. But I think I've been very fortunate in terms of my supervisors and the teams I've been a part of, in terms of feeling comfortable as a woman in either oil and gas or in mining or hard rock mining, in terms of being welcome. My thoughts and my comments and my opinions matter, and my recommendations matter. So I've been quite fortunate, I would say, in terms of my career, that very accepting. And I don't think that experience has been there for everyone, for every woman in industry. So it's been positive, I got to say. And I think it's changed over the last, say, 10 years. I think it's changed, that there are more women going into mining. Still not enough. I would say, we need to get still to the schools. Like, if you look across Canada, Canada's a resource economy. There's mines across the country, so lots of opportunity for jobs. And I think we do need to target women, and we need to target women in schools, that you can have a great career in mining, and you can have a family, and have a great life in terms of having a great career, learning lots, being challenged, making friends, meeting people from around the world, as well as having a family, having, basically outside of mining, having raising a family. It pays well. You can go on, you can go on trips on your vacation and stuff. So it allows for that, allows to take care of your family too, right? And also and plan for your retirement. So it is like a good way of life. So that's what I would say. We got to go after the women in schools and actually just explain like the benefits of mining and benefits of having a career in mining and what it provides in terms of to your family and to yourself.
Yeah, I've enjoyed our mining life. So I agree with everything you say. The opportunities that we experienced as a family were directly related to mining. So, globally, it's a tiny, tiny industry. There's an immense array and amount of opportunities too. It's not just one thing that women can do. It's not just this or it's not just that. It's such a variety. And I'm happy to talk with you because, I know you, I know how you work, and also going from an engineering background into that problem-solving mining background. And I happen to know that you also lead a number of women as well. And that's something that, I personally appreciate. I think when we're not accessing half of the population, we're missing out. So just on the numbers alone, if we're not attracting women into mining, we're definitely missing out on some, really capable thinking and innovators and, relators and all the rest of it. So I'm really happy to hear that you've had a good experience. And I know from watching you work that you are an excellent mentor and leader of not just, young women, but of young people in general, and particularly young women. And I think, that I would imagine is quite rewarding to see women joining up and becoming interested in it.
Absolutely. I think about my team. It's a good reminder for me. I think about my team, and yeah, I think my team's like half and half in terms of half female, half male, something like that. And I just start to think of the women in my team, and I think about like they're, some of them are early in their careers, and and then I compare them to when I was, their age, in a similar position, and I'm like, these guys are so much smarter than I was. and they're super keen, and I was keen, don't get me wrong, but it's really awesome to see. But it's great to see them, and I reflect that, hey, these women are going to go far. If they stay in mining, I think they're going to go far, and they're going to be our future leaders. That's my prediction, and because of the work ethic that they have, just they ask the right questions. They want to learn, eager to learn, eager to take on new tasks, to challenge themselves. So to me, that just is just that combination. I think they can go far. I think they're going to be our future mining leaders, and we'll hopefully see more women in operational general manager type roles, and I think we'll get there. And I think we have some up and comers that are going to be easy to step into those roles. So.
Well, and as they look back on their careers, I'm sure that you'll be a part of making their experience, as positive or even more positive than, your reflection on your own experience. And it's interesting to hear when we talk about mentoring and we talk about all of those things, the mobility between companies and, the growth that people can have in their career. Not many people stay with one company for 35 years anymore. I think that's, long done. That's a past pattern. The more current pattern is, a few years here, a few years there, building, growing, learning more. And it's that mobility and that opportunity there is, I think, sometimes invisible to people when they look at mining, because mining tends not to happen in the city centers, right? So
Uh,
unless you have an opportunity to get out into the remote sites and to see what actually happens, I think there's still an adventurous spirit that a lot of people don't know about. And once they see it, it's quite a strong hook. When I talk to people who don't know about mining and then they look at it and they're like, oh, that is really interesting.
Absolutely. I think that's the attraction, especially for younger folks. It's the to go and work in the north and in a remote site.
Yeah, we didn't even get to talk about the north. How amazing, how amazing it is to be up in the north.
Right? Like it's just like the tundra, the wildlife, the just even the weather patterns from, beautiful in the summer, in the subarctic, Acadi's in the subarctic, right? And beautiful, you get 25, 30 plus degrees temperature, which people wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
And very cold in the wintertime. When I first landed at Acadie, February of 2021, I got off the plane, the summit plane. It was minus 58 with the wind chill. I'd never experienced that in my life, that cold in my life. And I was thinking to myself, what have I done? Sheila, what have you done?
You wouldn't be the first person to have that exact question when you land in the middle of winter.
And that was my first, and obviously, you minimize your time outside, you dress for the elements, and so on, and we have protocols and procedures in place. If you have to work in those temperatures, obviously for a short period of time, there's controls that we put in place. But going back to like when it's fall in the subarctic, you get these beautiful, the tundra, the flowers turn purplish, reddish, and it's just a gorgeous color. You see that all over the tundra, it changes that color purple, reddish, and it's just gorgeous, right? And then in wildlife, you think the muskox. We just videoed and observed some muskox close to Grizzly Lake, which is nearby to the first pits at Acadie that were developed panda and koala. And it's very rare to see muskox that far north and near the mine site or on the actual mine site footprint. And beautiful, beautiful animals, lots of grizzly bears, lots of caribou. So just experiencing the north is fascinating, right? And that's what draws people to work at a remote mine site. And just that the weather from and the wild and the wildlife to the actual job itself to the people, because it goes back to and then also just the shifts in terms of being able to work for 2 weeks and have 2 weeks off to do what you want. That really attracts people to a remote mine site as well.
It makes it very doable long term. And, we've had conversations about, people who are like, oh, I don't know how you do it. How do you stay away for that long? I'm like, well, first of all, the camp life is totally decent. And then the other aspect of it is 2 weeks off. Like that's not nothing, right? Like that's you get some great time. If you have a family, you get great family times. You can have vacation every other week, essentially. And then when you do take your vacation, you get your 2 weeks off, you get your 2 weeks of vacation, then you get 2 weeks off again. So you've got that's 2, 4, 6 weeks off. That's pretty amazing, right?
And basically you're working half a year when you calculate it out, right? And so
you do all your hours, but you condense them, and it's a really interesting life in that way. So now there's still some office jobs, though. Like there's still some, jobs that don't necessarily happen on the site itself, and those are some that I could probably talk about another day, the finance, the HR, and all the rest of it. But I so appreciate your perspective and especially taking some time on a Saturday afternoon to talk about work. I really appreciate it, Sheila.
No problem. No.
Thanks for leading the way and sharing your story. And I'm really happy to be part of helping share the positive experience that you've had in mining, and ending on that piece of environmental appreciation that you share as well is something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about as miners being really enthralled, entranced, and protective of the environment. So we have to listen to the people who are actually doing it and find out, how do we treat the environment? And I know the level of care that you take for the environment and for the people. So thanks so much.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks, Anel.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Resourceful Women is a product of the Prospector News. Opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the speaker and speaker alone. Resourceful Women is for educational and entertainment purposes, and nothing in the podcast should be taken as investment advice. Always consult with a licensed personal financial advisor before making any investment purchases.